Welcome back to the Love Your 9 to 5 show, episode number 32.
A lot of my friends and family didn't even know what size my business was because I didn't want anybody. I don't know. I guess I was nervous to tell people. I didn't want them to. It's the whole cliche of I didn't want them to say, Matt, you're too successful, or hey, you're making too much money.
Caution, you will begin to love your 9 to 5 with this show. Join us as we explore and discover your unique strengths and learn to apply them to your daily business activities with your host, Shmuel Septimus.
Welcome to this next episode of the Love Your 9 to 5 show. I am joined today with a high-performance coach, motivational speaker, a modern-day superhero in his own words, and hopefully we'll hear soon exactly why that is so. Today joining me is Matt Balducci. Matt, welcome to the Love Your 9 to 5 show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for taking some time and joining us today. And Matt, I know we just got to talking a little bit before the show. Please introduce yourself, if the way that you know how to. Let our listeners understand who you are a little bit personally, what your personal journey has been, and professionally, how you got from where you were to where you are right now.
So I grew up actually in Chicago. I'm actually a Midwesterner. I was a huge sports fan and I played a ton of sports growing up, but I grew up in kind of a lower socioeconomic status. I didn't know this until I went to college, but my parents were slightly above the poverty line. So I grew up working really, really hard, but by working hard, I ended up excelling in sports in school. And I ended up winning a bronze and silver medal for the USA baseball team. And my ultimate goal at that time was to play Major League Baseball for the Chicago Cubs. But unfortunately, I got a arm injury. My pitching arm kind of sidelined me. And so I ended up doing the normal thing. I went to college. And I got bit by the entrepreneurship bug. My freshman year, actually, I ran a $80,000 small painting company. In the summer, I made about $25,000 in income, and I honestly at that point realized that I could make a lot of money in my career. And so I ended up after that business, I ended up starting a marketing company that did about $500,000 my next 3 years of school. And then when I left college, I actually, unfortunately, collapsed my company through the
marketing company?
Yeah, my marketing company. Yeah. So I essentially, through learning curves and just being young and cocky, I ended up collapsing it. And at that point, I invested all the money I made back into my business. And so I was left broke. And I had about $30,000 in student loans and $10,000 in credit card debt, which at that moment in my life, $40,000 was a ton of money. And I did what every great person does. I put my Clark Kent glasses on and I went into the corporate world, and I hated it. I worked there for about a year and a half. I switched jobs 4 times. I actually got fired from 2 of them. It wasn't because I was bad at getting results. I just was a bad employee. And so then I basically left the corporate world, and I had no ideas, no capital, but I knew I needed to be an entrepreneur. So I launched a construction company, and over the last 4 years, through a lot of ups and downs, but also great successes, I built a $2.6 million construction company before I turned 30. And I actually just sold it to my business partner, which is super exciting for me because now I'm moving on to what my true passion is, which is I've been coaching highly successful entrepreneurs here for the last 4 months and kicking butt and loving it and doing some motivational speaking along the way as well. And so that's kind of just a quick overview of my journey so far. Just in my business, on my business and career side, I do have a 16-month-old and a baby on the way, which I'm a huge fan of being a dad. I recommend to everyone out there. I know you have 6 kids, and so you have 5, and then a baby on the way as well. So we both have babies on the way. But it's just
actually the baby came. The picture I showed you wasn't updated.
Oh, congrats! That's freaking awesome.
Yeah,
so
thank you.
That's awesome. So yeah, I love being a dad, and my wife and I travel a lot, and we just have a great time. But that's kind of my.
Get ready to make some adjustments.
We're ready. We're ready. I'm excited. We're finding out actually tomorrow we're finding out the gender, and so when I'll have to email you after and let you know. But
Nice.
it won't be on when this comes out. We'll definitely know the gender.
Awesome. Awesome. So you definitely have a very busy life. Now, if we can just kind of, figure out and try to piece this together a little bit, you definitely can see from a very early age. I would say you were blessed in hindsight to grow up in the financial climate that you grew up in, and you learned grit, you learned hard work, you learned that you did not have the entitlement mentality, which unfortunately plagues so many of us, that we feel like things should be handed to us. And a lot of the employee mindset also comes from entitlement, that I'll give you 40 hours of my week and you're going to give me benefits, you're going to give me insurance, you're going to give me, my paycheck and whatever. And for a lot of people that works. But for someone who's used to earning your own keep from such an early age, that's something that wasn't a fit. And you could see how successful you are and how far you've gotten through that, and the medals that you've earned. Now, that was in the U.S. Olympics?
So it's for it's not the Olympics, but it's a USA baseball team I tried out for, and I
Nice.
played two summers, one in Italy. We did a tournament in Italy and one in Amsterdam my junior year, so high school.
Wow. So I mean, so you've been moving up pretty quickly, just in that area. And then even when you were supposed to be focusing on your studies, which perhaps you were, perhaps you weren't, but you definitely had two successful companies on the side.
I actually ended up in my top 10 in my my high school as well.
Okay, so you see that you were applying the same skills that you were applying to your business activities on the side. This was not you weren't slacking off in your studies. This was in addition. So you're the type of person who needs to have a very full life, apparently. That, while you were excelling in your studies, you had the painting company, you had the marketing company. You already shared how you had the challenge with the loss of your marketing company, but then and you had your stint, the corporate world. First of all, how was that in the corporate world? What type of job was that? Do you mind sharing?
Yeah, so I did copier sales. I actually made a lot of money doing that. I also did some consulting, but what would happen is I would go in and I would kick butt. Not in a cocky way, but I was really good at sales, so I'd go in and do really well. But I was the type of guy who didn't believe in, I guess I'm a bad employee. I would show up late, leave early, but I'd get stuff done, and I would actually outsell everyone. But my bosses didn't like that. They wanted me there at 8 a.m. and leave at 6, and I didn't really want to do that. And I got my work done and kicked butt, but they didn't like it. So
they didn't like you making your own hours and setting your own priorities, even though you were meeting the overall goals. They wanted you to sit through conference calls and meetings and email chains and to kind of be handcuffed to your job instead of just producing results.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, and now that you sold your construction company, so you mentioned that very nonchalantly, how you built your construction company and then you built it up to $2.6 million, and then you were able to sell it. What do you think, I mean, in your own reflection over, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be many more things to add to the list as your career continues to evolve. I have no doubt that coaching and speaking is your last stop. I'm sure that it's going to evolve and more things. Not that that's a bad place to stop, and I know that you're passionate about it, but I don't believe it. Listen, time will tell. But what do you think is the theme that has been kind of pushing you along from the entrepreneurial world to the corporate world back and to the different companies that you've started and sold along the way?
So I think that, like you said, actually you hit it on the head, is when I grew up, growing up in kind of the lower socioeconomic status, which I actually didn't even really know until I went to college and saw everyone else and what their mom and dad made and what kind of cars they had and houses they grew up in compared to what I did. I guess, unfortunately, well, it's positive and negative. Unfortunately, I put a lot of pressure on myself to succeed quickly, and I didn't want to live the same lifestyle in terms of the financial lifestyle, which actually had some negatives to it as well, by me focusing a lot on money and trying to grow businesses and letting my health go at a certain point in my career. And I had, even not paying attention to my relationships as much as I should have. And just focusing on growing businesses versus, enjoying life. And then when I did have quote unquote success, I got to it and I realized that it wasn't what I really wanted. I mean, I wasn't at the level I really wanted, which is where the modern day superhero comes in. But I just realized that it wasn't necessarily about the money, but I was chasing something that I just didn't have when I was a kid. And I still am obviously want to make tons and tons of money because it gives options, but really it's more so now to allow me to do a lot of bigger things in my life and help other people. But I would say that, that was some of the big things as I was going through my businesses that I realized and learned along the way. So.
Excellent. Now you said you're doing coaching and you're doing the motivational speaking engagements. Do you have a specific niche or niche? We can fight about that another time. Which you focus on through your coaching, and how did that all evolve? Did people start coming to you automatically? Is that something that you self-promoted? How did that happen?
So it actually happened organically. Everything actually in the last 4 months has happened. Oddly enough, I started a journey. It's kind of crazy to say this. I don't know if the viewers are going to be able to see me, but I guess they'll be able to see a picture of me. But I was about 45 pounds heavier a year ago. I was 27% body fat. Now I am 100. I was 235 pounds. Now I'm 190 pounds and 9% body fat. I'm doing my first fitness show in the fall. Wow. And it all started, last year my business grew, and I had my first son, and they always say when your wife's pregnant, don't eat the same foods they're eating, but I did. And, I gained the same amount of weight she did. The only difference was when she had my son, she lost it all and I didn't. And, I woke up one day and I looked in the mirror. I think he was about 5 months old now, and I was out of shape. I was an athlete and I was just completely out of shape. My joints hurt. I was tired all the time. And I was a super productive hard worker, but I wasn't as effective anymore. Even mentally, I wasn't effective. And I woke up, looked in the mirror, and was just dissatisfied with who I became. I became kind of a little lazier. And I was trying to, I guess I was after all the years of hard work, I think I told myself, all right, it's time to relax. But really what ended up happening is I just became lazy. And I looked in the mirror and I said, Matt, you got to change, man. You got to be, it was actually because of my son. I looked at him and I said, I don't want him to grow up in a house where he looks up and he sees his dad, who's, a fat man. And, not that in a judgmental way, but like, I just didn't want him to grow up and that would be what he would become. Cause I always thought that, my health in terms of who I am, I never had a six pack, even when I played baseball. And, I never thought I can get one, and now I have one, which is awesome. But thank you, I appreciate it. And that's not to be cocky to anybody out there, or tell anybody to impress them. It's that over the last year, I've consistently put in the effort, just like in business. I just took the same mentality and the same metrics, and I just tracked myself, and just been extremely consistent on top of it all, being super busy. But what it actually did was it started my journey. I lost all the weight, got into better shape. My energy level skyrocketed. My ability to think skyrocketed. And then I started looking at my life in a bigger way and going, well, am I really happy with my business? Even though I grew a multi-million-dollar company, I wasn't very happy with it. I had great employees. I have great people who work for me, but I wasn't actually planning on selling at all. But my aunt at Thanksgiving, she said, Matt, whatever happened to you becoming a motivational speaker was always my dream, always what I really wanted to do. And she said, whatever happened, I started doing what everybody does, right? And I'm sure some of you guys out there can relate to this. You start making excuses. I was like, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to get involved. I don't know what the next steps are. I don't have any connections in that field. And I left Thanksgiving and I was back into good shape. And I was thinking, and I was trying to figure out figuring out my next steps. And running my business, and I had my little man at home and all that good stuff. And the question wouldn't leave me. So I said, well, why not just start a YouTube channel? So then I started a YouTube channel, not for any sort of monetary value. I still am actually not monetizing my YouTube channel, but I put out free content every single week. And I started that just because I wanted to motivate people and give them all the lessons I learned over my strengths and weaknesses and all my failures and successes. And I wanted to help. And so that started when and then I started putting out content on all my social media platforms. And all of a sudden people started calling me saying, Matt, I didn't know you did business consulting. And I was like, neither did I.
So explain that. So this is the critical point, is where you had some sort of inner awakening. I mean, first of all, parenthetically, you see the power of a word, just from that comment, that really it was a culmination of a lot of things, but it seemed like a climax over there. But even, it was very clear. I mean, I just did an interview last night with Dan Moyle from Interview of LA, and he spoke about the concept of inbound marketing, which is kind of what you were doing, is that you were providing value, having no idea exactly where this is going to go. Now this is the point, the tipping point is when someone comes over to you and says, hey, Matt, I didn't know that you do business consulting. Now, where did he get that impression from?
I was just putting out a lot of content around, productivity hacks and talking about me being an entrepreneur. I actually was a very private person. I actually did not put out a lot of content previous. So a lot of my friends and family didn't even know what size my business was, because I didn't want anybody. I don't know. I guess I was nervous to tell people because I didn't want them to. It's the whole cliche of I didn't want them to say, Matt, you're too successful, or hey, you're making too much money. And I think I was nervous to make people feel bad about themselves. And I know that sounds mean, but I was letting that hold me back. And so then they came to me and they're like, well, shoot, you run a $2.6 million business. Well, tell me, let me ask you a couple questions. And then all of a sudden I got my first 3 clients in a week, and I didn't even know what really to charge. And so then I went on my journey now where I'm at, which my business, my coaching company is I'm paced to do almost 300,000 this year.
Wow.
And I still haven't done any sort of formal marketing yet. It's all organic. And I'm super excited. Now, eventually I will start probably this year. I'm going to start putting out more paid advertising and different things like that. But I even hired my own business coach to coach me as well. And I invested a good amount of money into that. But what I discovered along the way was that I personally am really good at problem solving and helping business owners because I went through the gambit. As an entrepreneur for 10 years, I've dealt with everything from key employees leaving to working 100 hours a week to taking where I'm at now. I only work 20 hours a week in my construction business because I built systems, and I'm really good at systemizing things. And so typically when I sit down with an entrepreneur, within weeks, I can decrease the hours they're putting in by productivity hacks, and I can increase their income by looking at their financials and making a couple adjustments that maybe they just didn't look at. And I've done it with one of the guys I work with. He's a gym owner, and he was making $1,000 a month, working 100 hours a week. It was a new business a year in, and within 2 months, he's making 10 grand a month now. And he's now only working 60 hours a week. And we were able to do it just in a quick way because he just didn't know how to do it. And
so give us an example. I mean, I think it's important before we even go there. I think it's important to point out how, again, I'll keep on saying this, but I think by now people are starting to get it, that the internet has leveled the playing field, and that talent, content, value is the only thing that counts. It doesn't matter if you're a multi-billion-dollar brand and you have a limitless marketing budget, or if you're some guy in a basement with a laptop. You can be just as far as long as you're delivering real content in a genuine, authentic way. Now, you mentioned specifically that you took somebody who was making $1,000 a week, and you were able to successfully make some changes. So tell us about some of those productivity hacks. You don't have to tell me specifically if there's privacy issues about that case, but maybe some of the tools that he was able to use. Maybe some of our listeners may be able to apply this to where they are right now. It can help them begin to love what they're doing just a little bit more.
Yeah. So just to give you just a quick background, he's he's actually my personal trainer. Now he pays me as his coach, but So I was working out with him, super great guy. And when I met him, he was just this upbeat guy, and a lot of people could probably relate to this. He was about 7 months into his business. Or for some of you out there that are working a job, there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe you're 7 months into your job, and he was just happy as can be. And then 3 months later, I came in to do my workout with him, and he looked like someone stole his soul, honestly. And we started talking, and I found out that he wasn't making as much money as I thought he was. And he was an unbelievable personal trainer. He's been in the fitness industry for 14 years, and he's just a genius when it comes to all that. But he just was not growing his business the right way. And he was wearing every single hat you could possibly wear in a business, and he had no employees. And we sat down, I started asking him business questions, and he couldn't answer them. And so we made a couple of adjustments. But I also work with a chiropractor right now who makes $500,000 a year profit himself. And he's working 60 hours a week. And what I've noticed over the course of all the business owners that I've been working with is all of them want two things. They want to systemize their businesses so it can systemically make more money, and they want to decrease their actual input of physical hours. And so kind of a couple tips that I can give to even people that are employees. There's nothing wrong with being an employee. But number one is that a lot of people schedule out their work life, but they don't schedule out their personal life. So they literally have nothing scheduled outside of work. So when they show up, when they wake up in the morning, they don't wake up early. And when they get off work, they go home and watch TV for the whole night, and they don't have anything else scheduled in their life. So both of us on this podcast right now, you're running a podcast out the side of your job. And then I have run my business, and I started up my coaching company on the side. And I make a YouTube channel. I have a YouTube channel that I put out videos on. I put up content. I'm writing my first book. I'm doing a fitness show. Like, there's multiple things you can do, and you can live the life of your dreams, in my opinion. But you just have to schedule it. And I think a lot of people don't do it. They don't have any sort of scheduling mechanism. And then it comes the productivity and the energy hacks, which is waking up early versus late. I'm a big morning routine guy. Obviously, there's a million videos out there on it, but honestly, it's the best thing I've ever done in my life. I used to sleep in until I had a meeting, and then I would wake up and run to my meeting, and I wouldn't get anything done after work. I would come home, sit down, and I would I watch a 3-hour Cubs game versus, come home and read a book or hang out with my family or, actually get something done outside of my job. And I see a lot of people out there, they work, but they don't enjoy their life.
I'll tell you, Kevin Cruz, who was on the show, he has a book called, I think, 15 Things Successful People Know About Time Management. You know the book?
So, yeah, I know the book. Yeah.
All right. So, yes, that's a phenomenal book. And so he mentions there about a specific incident where someone called, usually obviously he charges for his time and he charges for his speaking engagements, and obviously that's his business. But once in a while he'll do something pro bono, and there was a particular event. The short version of the story is that there was a particular event that someone asked him to come to, an out-of-town event, a speaking gig, I believe it was, and which he accepted. And then he accepted something else. Once you're in town, will you come and speak over here? And it ended up that one small favor turned into a very large favor, and multiple things within that city were scheduled, which was all fine because he looked at his calendar. It was 6 months out and there was nothing there. So obviously he's going to have time. But then he had a personal obligation that was in a direct conflict to that entire thing, which he cannot make that obligation, to that. I forget exactly what it was. Obviously I'm not prepared to say the story, but the point was that we think when we look at our calendars 6 months out, 3 months out, or a month out, now I'm busy, but look, in a month from now, there's nothing on my calendar besides for whatever recurring meetings we have or whatever. So probably I'm going to have tons of time then. But we don't realize that as busy as we are now, we're going to be the same way in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or 12 months if we don't do anything about it. But on the other hand, it is wide open. You can schedule your life around whatever things are priorities. So if you have an event that you're going to go to, whatever meetings you are, no one says you can meet on this. Everyone gives you a few dates. And you just tell the world that you're not available on that day, and you're not available. I know that with my own family, which, things have been, busy, and the business life is busy and personal life is busy. And sometimes, we could just not have time to spend time with the family. And I've set up my schedule now in a way where there are certain times which are, this is family time. And it's as important, at least as important, as business time. It's more important than business time. But from a scheduling perspective, you're right. You schedule it in, then you have a life. And, as business owners have, in my opinion, they have a bigger challenge to be a workaholic than an employee, because the money's going into their own pockets, and there's a never ending list of to-dos which they want to get done and grow their business and grow and grow. But as I'm sure you've seen, and as I'm sure you must have been sharing with some of your clients, sometimes more is less and less is more. In other words, sometimes having specific focused activities instead of the endless busyness can make your business really prosper. That sounded good.
No, it makes sense. And you hit it on the head. Like, what I noticed is when I was a younger businessman, I'm similar to you. I actually have like, my employees know two things now, is that they can't call me before 10 a.m. in the morning. I literally will not answer your phone call. I don't care if a house is burning down. I will not answer your call. And from 5 o'clock to 7:30 every night, no matter what, you cannot call me. Now, so what I do is, I used to be the worst. We all have these addictions to our cell phones. I actually leave my phone in my office because I know myself. Is even if I know I'm not going to answer the phone rings, I'm curious. I want to go see who called me. And what I discovered is that sometimes I used to catch myself checking my phone for no reason. And my son, well, actually, this was before I had my son. My wife and I would be sitting there, and I'd be out having dinner with her. And one of my employees would call me. I'd pick up the phone, and I would step away. And all of a sudden, 30 minutes later, she's done eating, and now she's upset at me. And what I tell anybody that I work with as a high performance coach is that you have to, and you hit it, it's great that you're already doing it. I block it off, and I actually remove what I tell people when I started to do my fitness journey, I just removed anything out of my life that would require me to get tempted. So I used to be a sugaraholic, and I haven't had sugar in 6 months. And the reason is that I removed all sweets from my house. If there was a sweet in my house, I would eat it. Same thing with my phone. So I tell anybody that I work with that you have to have, outside of business, you have to have boundaries with your workers and your family. And what you said was your family time is more important than your business time. In my opinion, nothing is more important than each other as long as you schedule it in. Now, when people hear that, they're going to go, Matt, your family's more important. You better believe family's important. It's actually extremely important to me, but you have to go to your job. You have to go to your business
Right.
to support your family. And you also have to schedule in health. You have to go to the gym, or find a way to be healthy. And that's just as important as the other two as well. Your relationships, all of that. So what I found is just blocking time into your calendar and making boundaries with yourself. You can make boundaries with other people, but you have to make them with yourself, where you make a promise that I will not take a call before 10 o'clock. And like, sometimes I'll have an employee call me at 7:30 a.m. and it's hard for me not to answer, but I made that promise to myself I wouldn't pick up the phone, and I wait. And
and I'm sure that the employees learn, and crises tend to solve themselves, and other people step up to the plate when they realize that they're expected to do so. Now, a lot of times the corporate mentality is that the lower down you are in the food chain, the less qualified you are to do and accomplish certain tasks, where really, if you empower other people by putting yourself out, and like you say, you put a system in place. If this is a crisis, why am I being called? All these times, even now, let's say, in the nursing home world, there are some people who enjoy the ability. That's not even limited to nursing homes, probably any organization, but some people actually enjoy being the person on the top of the organization that everybody needs for a decision. And you have serious micromanagers who won't allow anything to happen without their intuition and their input. My personal goals, and again, this is maybe my personal style, is I would prefer never to be bothered ever for anything, and unless it absolutely needs legally for regulations. It might need my license or whatever. But if I don't need to get involved, then I shouldn't get involved. I would love to empower everybody to do their jobs, and they feel so much more important. And you know what? Frankly, they're better at what they do than I am. I probably wouldn't be good in their job, and I certainly don't want their job. They're skilled. They like it. They like being where they are. Allow them to do what they need to do. I'll say one other point is that you spoke about blocking out time for personal obligations. How many times have you been, for at least in the corporate world, have you been in a business meeting where you were in a room with 5 or 10 or 15 people and there was nobody in the room? Everybody just knew that this was that mandatory recurring meeting, or that someone called this meeting and we all now need to be here and kill X number of minutes of our day because we committed based on our Outlook calendar that 30 minutes, 60 minutes, whatever it is. And some people are on their phones. How many people are just completely unplugged from everything else and just focused on the task at hand to just get that done? And I found that by limiting the time, the frequency of such meetings extremely, unless there's a real urgency, to limit it, and then to put an end time. We're going to be here now for 30 minutes, not more, not less, so people know after 30 minutes we're walking out no matter what. And then saying, okay, and this, and everyone knows coming in, this is what we need to accomplish. And if it's not directly related to this, we're not going to discuss it. I just found that personally that, that helps so much, by people knowing that it starts, it ends, this is our goal, and we're engaged with the topic at hand and disengaged from everything else while we're doing whatever task that is.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement. I think if anybody out there wants to read a good book, it's called Death by Meeting, and it's actually on my in my bookshelf that I'm looking at right now, and it's a great book for anybody out there, and especially managers. And you hit it right in the head that ultimately what it comes down to is everyone's in the room. So anytime I do business meetings, I make all my employees put their phones in a box, and we put it outside the door. And the reason is because if you don't, everyone's on their phone. Everybody's not paying attention. And if they're not talking, they're not listening. And we remove computers and phones from the room, and we go old school with pen and paper. And then what we do is we set up, I say we put an hour, but we finish in 30 minutes, then we're done in 30 minutes. We don't need to use the whole hour. So, and I think a lot of times people make the mistake in meetings of just running meetings. They just do meetings to do meetings, right? And so what I like to do is before we even start, I actually learned this from one of my old mentors, is when you start a meeting, you just ask the room, what is your intention today? What do you want to get out of this meeting? And you make sure everyone writes it down, so that way they actually are paying attention and they feel like they leave with something. Because if you don't, you're going to end up, like you just said, Shmuel, that basically it will end up where everyone in the room is just not there mentally. They're all just checked out, and it's annoying for everyone, especially the owner.
Right. So let's changing gears here a little bit. If you wanted to talk, I know we spoke about some of your successes, but we want to make you a little bit uncomfortable here so that we can discover some of the lessons that you've learned earlier on, and our listeners can apply to whatever stage they are in their professional journey right now. So would you mind going back to a particular failure earlier on in your career or in your entrepreneurial journey, and tell us how terribly something went? And I know you mentioned a couple things in passing, and what is the lesson that you learned from there, and how have you implemented that since then?
Yeah. So this doesn't make me uncomfortable at all. Actually, this is one of my favorite questions, because I honestly think to be successful, you have to fail. Now I'm going to take that line back here and say, you have to fail, and then you have to actually change up what you're doing. A lot of people think that failure leads to success. It doesn't. What leads to success is when you try, fail, and adjust. And so I ended up, I'll tell you a million of them, but I'll just give you a couple key ones. I dropped out of college.
How about this? How about you give me your absolutely worst one?
My absolute worst one.
Yeah.
Let's think here. In my business career, I would say it was after I started up my construction company, my second time around. My first year, we did $700,000 in revenue, and it was an unbelievable first year in business. And I built up this awesome company, and I had some key employees. I had 4 key employees that I had at the end of that year, and they all left. And they all left because of me. They left because I was overbearing, and I was the words that they used at the time was I was manipulative. Now, I wasn't trying to be. I didn't mean to be, but I was so focused, like I said, on business that I didn't focus on them. And every single one of them walked out on me. So I had a $700,000 business and 0 employees. And so I had to completely rebuild. Now, the good news is my next year I did 1.1 million and ended up learning probably more than you can imagine about how to work with people as employees and build up the right culture. And then my business took off from there, and I had some of the best employees I could have ever asked for.
And they stayed?
Yeah, my retention. So here's the crazy part. After that year, my retention ended up being the number 1 in the industry. So
Really?
I lost the lowest amount of employees that you could possibly can in the industry. And it was because I literally got really upset at myself, and I studied on that topic for 3 to 6 months, and I worked on emotional intelligence, and I actually really focused on how to build culture and how to be closer to my employees and how to get more out of them. And by doing that, my guys didn't want to leave. They all wanted to work for me, and they still do. They're still working with me to this day.
Wow.
4 years later now, after that mess up my first year.
So I'm trying to figure this out here. So if you're a salaried employee, so you may not have the same challenge that you had, but maybe not the same application. But if you want to go to the root of the problem, and basically the way you just explained it is that you were so focused on results and the business goals that you were trying to accomplish that perhaps you didn't see the people component and the fact that people are not machines, and people need to be treated a certain way and understood and nurtured and grown in order for them to really shine and really to be the best employees they can for you and to stick around to take your $700,000 a year and get the next 1.1 and to grow from there. And so you're able to adjust. Now there's so many other people who are, well, I've observed companies where you see similar toxic environments. I'm not saying that's how it was by you, but you definitely see this. And sometimes like, yeah, well, all my employees are terrible. They all left. Good for them. They should have left. And then the next year they hire new people, and they may be very good business-wise, and they attract top talent, or they pay for top talent. But then the cycle repeats itself. So what you said is so true. There are plenty of people who fail all the time, and they're still failures because they don't learn anything from it. But by you taking the necessary steps and adjusting, you were able to grow it from there. Now, if I know you mentioned the book Death by a Meeting, but if there's a particular book which you think someone who is currently working in a 9-to-5 job, or they're starting up their own company, but they're not quite there, and he looks at the bookshelf, they're not quite there yet. What is, in your opinion, the one book that can help the person get in touch with their specific mission, passion, application of their skills, and really just so that they will be the happiest while they are productive and earning their paycheck to provide for their families? Is there any particular book that comes to mind?
Yeah, so I'm on a mission this year. I'm actually on book 40 for 2018. I'm going to read 80 books this year. So I can I have a book review that goes out on my YouTube channel every week. But
nice.
The book that I highly recommend, this is actually more for anyone out there, is Mindset by Carol Dweck. And the book focuses on the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. And I think that would help anybody out there. And then I'm going to cheat here and give my number 1 favorite book for anyone, which is The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. And honestly, that book is what changed my life personally. But the first book would be more so for people, and I believe in the corporate world, because I have a lot of friends who work in the corporate world, and some of them love their jobs and a lot of them hate their job. And the reason that they hate their job is they're afraid to leave. They're afraid to try something new. They're afraid to go start a business. They're afraid to take the next step, or they don't even know what the next step is. So they just stay and they hate their days. And
called the golden handcuffs, right? Some of them are getting paid really, really well, and like, why spoil the apple cart?
Yeah.
Right.
So they're just nervous. But yeah, the growth mindset versus fixed mindset. Go read that book, guys. I'm telling you, life changer. And honestly, Power of Habit, my favorite book ever. So
Okay, excellent. Well, Matt, we really appreciate you sharing some of your personal stories with us today, and specifically some of the growth hacks, productivity tips that you've shared with us, and the resources. If our listeners or viewers, perhaps, we can talk about that afterwards, want to continue following and consuming some of your content and just really seeing what you're doing, where's the best place to send them?
So you guys can do a couple different things. You can go to my YouTube channel, which is just Matt Balducci, and I put out 2 videos a week right now. One is actually a professionally made video. It's really cool. And then the other one's my book review videos that I make in my office. You can go to my Facebook or my Instagram. They're both Matt Balducci. And I put out 2 videos a day on those for motivation and content creation. And I give productivity hacks on there. And then my LinkedIn will give you my background. And then my the big thing that I would like to offer to your audience, and I know you and I talked about this, and you said it was a great opportunity for everyone, is I'm actually offering just to Shmuel's community here is basically if you guys need or want to have a one-on-one coaching session with me. Now, I do focus mostly on high-performing entrepreneurs, but if you're a high-performing leader in your company and you're looking for some coaching on productivity, high performance, or on other things, go to go.mattbalducci.com/momentum. So go.mattbalducci.com/momentum, and you can schedule that up. Right now it's free, guys. To be blunt with you guys, in 6 months, it will no longer be free anymore. I'm going to have to charge just because there's going to be a higher demand. But for now, I would love to give you guys that offer. It's a 60-minute free meeting, and it might not lead into anything. It might just be you getting an hour-long development meeting, or it might turn out to us working together in some capacity. So again, feel free to go to that if you just want to chat one-on-one and potentially learn more about what I've been doing. And if you're an entrepreneur specifically, I would love to work with you as well. So but that would be how you can reach out to me. That'd be awesome. And like, comment on any of my videos if possible. So.
Awesome. Well, that's a very, very generous freebie that you just gave away there. And we'll put a note to the books, and all the resources that were mentioned in the show notes when we do go live. Now, just about the videos, do you produce you said you have the book reviews, but what about the other ones? You do that all yourself, or you have a team that does that?
Yeah, so my YouTube channel, one of my videos is produced from my team. It's a guy named Zephin Moses Blacksburg. He's awesome. And then I have a team, and then for my book reviews, I make them, but I have a young lady named Millie who she does all the editing for me.
Nice.
And I use that now on my Facebook, and all those videos I just edit myself, but those are more quick Facebook Lives, things like that. And it's all free content, no monetization.
Nice.
No monetization.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
excellent. Well, thank you very much. It sounds like the baby's waking up.
Yeah, he just got home with my wife. So when we're done, I'm gonna go have my family time, which starts here in a minute. And
all right. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for taking some of your business time together with us today. We've definitely shared, really lots of valuable content with us. And like I said, we'll put links to everything so everybody will be able to find their way back to you. Should they want to pursue that. And we really wish you all the best. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for your time, and I really appreciate having me on, and I hope this helped out. And again, guys, good luck.
Thank you. I really hope you enjoyed this episode with Matt Balducci. Do me a favor, if you did, head over to iTunes, leave me a nice review. This will help iTunes share this show with others who are also interested in learning more about this content. Until next time, go out there and be authentically you.